Alright, let's get into this. This is a tutorial about how to use the Cryptographer. It's a manual drawing tool. I'm going to keep this super short so you can get straight into it and immediately start using it. We'll go over some of the more advanced stuff in some future videos. Alright, so I just dropped it on a chart. Default settings. First off, we have the on-off button. Obviously, when you turn it on, all the buttons light up. Makes it really obvious when the Cryptographer is on and ready to go. The next thing you need to know is the lock button. You can either be in lock or free mode. Obviously, if you're in lock mode, it's going to attach to the candles on the chart. If you're in free mode, then you can just draw wherever. It'll just follow your cursor and so on and so forth. The next two you need to know are the advance and the standby. The advance is when it's used when you're in the middle of a drawing and you're at a point where you want to stop. You want to leave it exactly as it is, but you want to do something else and you want to save everything as it is. You would hit this button. It'll save everything as is and then automatically advance you to the next available empty drawing space. The standby is not actually a button, it's an indicator light. Now, where this comes in is when you're using the hotkeys, which is the primary point where you actually use the drawing tool. There's two keys that you'll be using. One is the control and the other is the shift. The control button gets you into drawing mode and out of drawing mode. The shift gets you into selection and editing mode and out. You could immediately switch back and forth between these two. It's very straightforward. The one thing you don't want to do is press and hold the button. If you do that, it will start rapid fire switching back and forth. The keyboard controller takes over and starts doing an auto repeat. That's a hardware thing. I believe it doesn't do that with NinjaTrader, but either of the MetaTraders, it will do that. Anyway, so drawing function. We're gonna just jump right over here. Obviously, you don't need to be on the right side of the chart. It will just automatically switch back and forth for you as you're drawing. And you'll notice all of the lines are dashed. If I click right now, this is showing up to be a butterfly pattern, including down here in the indicator light. If I click this in place, it will complete the pattern. It will jump to the next available location, which is going to be number one, or not number one, it's going to be number two, since number one is the potential butterfly. It's going to lock this in as a butterfly pattern, and it's going to display everything that I have it set up to display for me. So click it, it locks everything in, displays all my numbers. Number two, no drawing selected. At this point, this pattern is saved, so if I were to switch time frames or switch to a completely different currency pair and then come back, this will still be here for me. Now, at this point, we're ready to draw another pattern, but you'll notice the standby mode is off. It does this in case you want to do other stuff around the chart after you've drawn something. It's just the most common scenario. To get back into drawing another pattern, all you have to do is hit the control button again. Simple, easy to do. Alright, so I'm going to switch over to free mode here, and we're just going to freestyle a pattern real quick. Sure, why not? A Gartley pattern sounds great. And then we'll jump over here and freestyle a risk-reward setup. The start point is always your entry. The second point, the A, is always your stop loss that you're wanting to project. And then your B point, when you cross over where your X point is, it switches into the risk reward pattern. At this point, it's not locked in. If I click the B point, it will lock this in just exactly the same way it locked in these two patterns. Now, the reason why I'm stopping here, if we jump down here, number 3, risk reward, it's my third drawing. If I want to go ahead and lock this in place, but I'm not entirely certain that I want to keep this as is, maybe I might want to turn it back into a pattern at some point. I have to leave the B unlocked. Well, I can do that easy enough by just jumping down to the ADV button to advance to the next available empty drawing space. So what about if I want to go back and change anything about any patterns in the past? Simple enough. All you have to do is hit the shift. It automatically activates selection mode. I can go around and pick any of these patterns. When the web is attached to a pattern, it will automatically grab the pattern, which you can tell it's based on where the X and the D points are located, and an averaging type of capture algorithm going on behind the scenes. You can edit pretty much anything you want to do, but what you cannot do is lock a pattern in place, and I will demonstrate that now by picking the risk reward pattern, which you'll notice now it says number 3 risk reward, so this is officially selected as the pattern. Let's say I wanted to messed up my entry point and I needed to lower it down a little bit. Well, I can shift that down. It redoes all of my risk reward parameters, just redisplays everything, updates all this information. But let's say I want to lock it in place now. If I do that, click on my B point. Now I can change however I want my risk reward. And you'll notice it now has the zones floating. I did that because it makes it a little bit easier to track exactly what's going on when you're messing with this pattern. But for the point that we're doing right now, if I click here, let's say I wanted to lock in that position, it's still an unsealed pattern parameter. But what I can do now, I can switch to drawing mode by hitting my control, and then it grabs a hold of that B point. And then I can click now, and now you can see it has updated. It has added a C and a D point automatically, and now the dashed lines are gone. That is an indication of how you can tell when a pattern is locked and when it's not. These, you'll notice when I originally draw them, they have dashed lines. Now they don't. This means the pattern is locked in. And also, once I click that B point and lock the risk reward pattern in place, now it jumped to number 4, no drawing selected. So it's ready to draw yet again another pattern if we wanted to get into something. So at this point, that pretty much covers every bit of the necessary stuff that you absolutely have to know to be able to use this. The only other thing that I will point out that you'll probably have noticed at this point, there are pop-ups. If you hover over any of the keys, these little tooltips will show up and give you a brief explanation of what the button does. For the most part, you're very likely not going to be turning these on and off very frequently. So you'll have these set up and you'll be dealing with that elsewhere in the settings, but we'll deal with how to set up all this stuff in another video. Anyway, have fun.